Hello there, this is Aydan from Elvenking, and you're listening to RichardMetalFan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 143. And today's guest, we're talking to Aydan from Elvenking. Elvenking are a folk metal band from Italy. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, as well as the history of the band. So without further ado, let's go talk to Aydan. So what's up, guys? I am here with Aydan from Elvenking. How you doing today, man?
Hello there, everything's fine, everything's good here. Summer is coming, so it's already very hot.
It's great to hear, man. So kind of like the format is I want to kind of like do a rundown of your discography, as well as talk about like your journey as an artist from where you started to now. But take me back to young Aydan. So kind of growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal, and what made you want to start playing guitar and also do like the harsh vocals?
Yeah, well, definitely, it was, I think back in 1989 or something. The first band I really got into was Halloween, and I was with a school friend, schoolmate, and I used to go to his house, and his older brother obviously has all these very, very nice vinyls, and I was so already into horror stuff and stuff like that. So the covers were the first thing that pop out, so there were these Iron Maiden stuff, a Seven Son of a Seven Son, vinyls, so very big and so big, so it was really, really, it was attracting me so much. So obviously we weren't able to listen to the vinyls when this older brother of my mate was at home, when he was out at university. We used to to steal the vinyls and try to understand what kind of music was inside this, this amazing cover artwork behind this great cover artwork. So I got into Iron Maiden, and especially Halloween, Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2. That when I heard the first time I heard I listened to Eagle Fly Free, basically I said, okay, I want to do something like that. It was something that I never heard before, and was something shocking for me. I was already playing some guitars because my mother wanted me to play some classical instruments. So I was taking some lessons of classical guitar, and so I thought, yeah, maybe I got some idea of how playing the guitar, so I can try to figure out how to play this kind of music, and from there on everything started basically.
Awesome. Awesome. Because I love like those first couple Halloween albums are great. Like the first three are pretty much, man, like I remember hearing Eagles Fly 3 and I
Yeah,
was like, wow, this is awesome.
yeah, me too, same thing, man.
Yeah. And so were you in any bands before starting up Elvenking, or was Elvenking like your first band?
Basically I was playing the guitar since a while, and I was already meeting up with Jarpen, which was our former guitar player, and the guy that founded Elvenkin with me. But we had the idea that to be in a metal band we needed to have some more technical skills, and we didn't want to just start a metal band without being able to play what we were wanted to play. And so we started to play in some local bands together, me and Jarpen, and kind of hard rock stuff, something easier, just to the idea was to kind of form our guitar playing, and maybe having some experience and skill, a little bit more skills, to form a metal band. So I would say that I was around in some local hard rock bands for some years. Then Jarpen moved away for 1 year in the US for these exchanges, school exchanges. He did 1 year in North Carolina. So in that period of time, I was, I was also playing the drums at the time. So I
Oh,
was
wow.
playing drums with some with some cover bands, stuff like that. Then I was asked to join Jethro Tull cover band. I was not really into 70s stuff, progressive stuff, but it was something that was anyhow, useful for me to prepare myself to get to the next level. And then when Jarvan returned from the US in 1997, we started the band, and
Awesome.
and we started from there.
Yeah, it's hard to believe like you all been around for over 25 years. Like, did you think that Elven King would be around for now, well, now going on 26 years now?
Not at all, not at all. At the time, especially in 1997, we were coming out of a very small village in Italy, and the Italian metal scene was, I would say, not existing at all. There were some very underground bands, something like that, but nothing that really could, was possible to move from Italy, to European festivals or stuff like that. Everything started around 1997 with Labyrinth, probably, and then Rhapsody, which were the first bands that had a kind of international recognition. So we said, okay, there are bands coming out of from Italy that can really have something more, and signing contract with the Metal Blade like Labyrinth did back in the days. And so we started thinking that there were some chances also for some Italian bands. So our only goal, to be sincere, at the beginning was trying to make our one album with our name and our songs on. That was the only goal. I would never have thought about doing a 25 years or more career. Not at all.
Yeah. And I believe that like the first thing that comes to mind is that first demo to the Oakwood Bestowed that was released in 2000. Tell me about like that. Where was that recorded at?
Yeah, it was, that was really, really different times because going into a studio into a professional studio at the time was something really, it's not like today where everyone can record the stuff at home, and everyone can have the budget, let's say, to record something. At the time, if you wanted to record something in a professional way, you needed to go to a studio, and that was really expensive, especially for young guys as we were at the time. So I remember that we were doing a rehearsal, and at every rehearsal, each of us was putting like 10 euros, something like that, every rehearsal, in order to build up some budget to record the demos. And the funny thing is that when we went to the studio, obviously we didn't have any kind of experience of a professional studio. We had a meeting with a guy who recorded the demo, who was Luigi Stefanini at New Scene Studio, that were a pretty known studio in Italy, because there is where Labyrinth recorded their Return to Heaven Denied album. So it was something already, a big thing for Italian market. And we went there, and the guy told us, okay, are you guys playing on a click, on a metronome? We said, no, not really. Okay, you have to do it, because if you want to record it, you need to do it. And we said, oh, okay, we need to learn how to do it. So I remember that we tried to figure out the click and the metronome of our tracks, and we find out for the first time that there were like 5-6 tempo changes into a songs, and we probably never figured it out clearly,
Oh,
how
wow.
how complicated the songs were. So we were trying to, at the time, with these MIDI files, trying to build up this click track, and was kind of impossible. It was a nightmare. So it was really funny to think nowadays about those time. But in a way or another, we we recorded the demo, and it was hard, tough, you know difficult for us, but the result was pretty okay, because we sent out the demo, and then after 3 days we started receiving phone calls from international labels. So it means that something good was done in that product.
Yeah, because I still like that demo, like the intro to Oakwoods Bestowed. I think it's a really great intro. It's just good. It pretty much builds up into like White Willow and then Oaken Shield, which also made it onto Heathen Reel. I just love like that whole EP. I just kind of wish like some of the other songs that didn't make it, like Under the Tree of Us. I feel like that song has like a huge variety, but I'd also think a very underrated song from you guys is Banquet of Bards. I just think it's really great. Great. It's just the kicks your ass just like from beginning to end.
Thank you very much. It's great to know that the demo and so old songs, and to speak with you directly and sincere. Me and Damna were going back, listening to the demo tracks, and we also had the impression that there were songs like Under the Tree of Wisdom and Banquet of Bards that kind of deserved a better, some better recordings and stuff like that. So one of our plan is to, to do something special, maybe, record again that songs. And also we have some other songs that didn't make it to the demo, but that they were very, very good songs in our opinion. Obviously, they were in that period of time, so in that kind of style. And I think that we really want to record also the songs that never saw the light. So maybe one of our next project would be, going back to our roots and the very first songs that we wrote together, and maybe re-recorded in a better way, including also Banquet of Bars and Under the Tree of Wisdom that didn't make it to Hidden Real album, because we chose the songs that at the time the reviews were more focusing on. They were talking about White Willow and Oaken Shield probably a little bit more than the others. So we said, okay, let's include these two songs in the debut album, and then the other two got a little bit lost. But we want to, you know, take out the dust from them.
All right. And so, of course, so then you started playing shows. You had the demo out, but then, of course, you got signed to AFM Records, which I believe is the label, and I think you still are on it to this day. Hey, how did they find Elvenking?
Yep. Yeah, basically we sign we signed with AFM really in a short time, because as I said, we sent out the demo to the major record label at the times, and we start recording receiving phone calls directly after really 3 or 5 days after we sent out the demos. So it was pretty impressive, and we got some contract deals proposal and stuff like that. And AFM was not a big label at the time, because it was pretty small, but they had an interesting band that was Ad Guy that we knew. It was kind of a new coming band at the time, and we said it would be interesting to be not the very last name of an important label, and maybe have something that can follow you a little bit more. So we decided to sign with them. The contract was pretty okay, and from that day to nowadays, we always been with AFM. We have renew the contract several times, and we are still with them. One of the funny thing is that one of the first thing that the AFM asked us was to, okay, we would like to sign you, but you need to change your name, because we don't like the name. We don't like the king part of the name, which we weren't very sure about it as well. We discussed a lot around the name, because we weren't so sure about the king part of the name. It was, overused and stuff like that. But we refused to change the name, because at the time the demo, when we did the demo, it went sold out in a very short time. we reprinted and it went sold out again. So
Oh wow.
we thought that there were already a kind of a huge base, a fan base that that was recognized the name. So we didn't want to change it and we refused. And AFM said, okay, let's do it and let's move on like this.
Awesome. And so tell me about like your the debut full-length album, Heathen Real. What was sort of like the thought process going into making the album?
We were coming from the demo tape. That was the demo CD was kind of like a speed oriented, very epic, um very power metal oriented, I would say, something like that. And that was also what kind of AFM expected from us. He told us later that he was thinking about us like a kind of new Blind Guardian or something like that. But we were, we wanted to have a something kind of a unique sound, not to be compared to other bands and so on. So we try to work on something more personal in terms of sounds and sounding. Obviously, we had a great influence that was the British band, the Skyclad, that is one of the most probably underrated bands in my opinion of the 90s, mixing thrash metal with some folk, and was the first band with a violin player into metal probably. And we wanted to be more personal and more unique, let's say, and we wanted to incorporate also our more extreme influences from death metal and black metal that we had, because we always had strong influences in the extreme scene, let's say, and a lot of this folk stuff from that we at the time we knew only Skyclad were the only folk metal band probably existing, and we tried to mix it with what we were doing in the demo. So something very epic and fantasy oriented, and that's what came out in Heathen. We were extremely proud of the album. We were super proud, and we were thinking about having done something. I don't want to say original because there is nothing original in music probably,
Yeah.
but something personal. Let's say something interesting. Unfortunately, when the album was released, first thing we sent it to AFM, and they were not happy at all, and they were like, okay, why are you doing something like that? We were expecting you to do something like Blind Guardian, Rhapsody, stuff like that, and the stuff that you are bringing to us is something really strange. So they weren't happy at all. And then we received the first reviews from Germany that were not good at all, especially Rock Hard. I remember that was very important at the time. So we were kind of, destroyed, because think about, 5 young kids with a lot of enthusiasm, being sure to have made something very good, and the first reaction were not good at all. So we were really, disappointed. Uh, it was a little bit stupid, because waiting a little bit more, after some weeks, very good reviews were coming out. Hidden was best album of the month in different magazines and stuff like that. But the very first reactions to the album kind of put a crack in the band, if I can say so. And this is obviously we weren't mature enough to understand that we needed to have a global view of the things. And thinking about in retrospect nowadays, I still believe that the Hidden is one of our most magical and unique album. And I love the album so much, and it's great that nowadays it is considered like a cult album, something like that, from a lot of people.
Yeah, that debut charm, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But then when Heathen Reel came out, did you start like touring like outside of Italy for the first time, or was it still just local?
We did only couple of festivals. I think there was not a big, big reactions to that. We did some shows. We supported that guy in Hungary. I remember we did Bloodstock Festival, and some in UK, something in Germany, but was not a big, uh, big touring or anything like that.
All right. And then of course your next album, Wired, or I probably butchered it. How do you say it? Weird or Wired?
Weird, weird,
Weird, weird. I was just it wasn't
weird. Yeah,
sure because it was just spelled weird.
yeah,
Weird, no pun intended. But
yeah,
but with usually with the
yeah.
first
It's weird. It's
yeah, it's a weird thing. But but when usually with the debut album you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Weird, did you felt like pressure to follow up Heathen Reel?
as I said, it was a very strange period because we started very confident on ourselves, on our songwriting and stuff like that, and then suddenly, for the reason that I told you before, we were kind of lost. We didn't know where to go, what to do, and so on. So we started writing Weird still with Damna in the lineup, and we go completely into a different direction. We started to down tune the guitars. We started to go more in a more straight
Kind of like a
songwriting,
kind of
and a
more
lot
powerful
more
metal.
extreme. Yeah, exactly, more metal without any acoustic stuff like that. Especially Jarpen was like saying, okay, we cannot put all these acoustic intermezzos and stuff because it's not possible to play them live in a good way. So we started to songwriting. Then we stopped for a moment and we say, okay, we are going to a completely wrong direction. Let's put everything to trash and start all over again. And it was a very, very tough period of time because we didn't know exactly what to do, what direction we need to go. We weren't sure about that. What we were doing on the Hidden album was the right direction. We wanted to, there were a lot of different opinions inside the band. Let's go something more power metal oriented, something more heavy metal, straight heavy metal. So it was a period of big confusion, and that led to first to Jarpen to quit the band for a period. Then he came back in the band, and then was Damna was leaving, and that creates a lot of problems. So I really uh consider the period around Weird the worst period of the band, and was something that I really don't like to recall so much.
Yeah, but I still think Weird. I think is a really great improvement. Like I know like the vocals are really great. Especially I also love like the higher usage of like the violin and the various folk instruments. I feel like the violin is used more frequently on here than it is on Heathen Reel.
Yeah, exactly. On Weird, we had for the first time we had a violin player in the band as a full member. Elegant already played in Hidden Rail, but it was kind of a guest, and it was just doing some parts here and there. And then in Weird, we incorporate the violin in the lineup, so obviously it had a lot more space, more room, and for the vocals we changed the lineup, and we had a different singer. Damna left the band, and we had another singer, Clade, and but the relationship with him, especially between me and him, was very, very bad. So uh, things were not going into the right direction. So there is something completely wrong in that album, in my opinion, even if people appreciate them. And that is another thing that we want to do. And I can tell you that you know, one of our next project is to recreate Weird as it was supposed to be at the time, because we wrote it and rewrote it several times, and the one that has been released at the time is not the album that we wanted to do, and we want to to release the album that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's our plan.
I feel like that could be work because I know next year is going to be the 20-year anniversary of that. So I feel like that could be an idea to like celebrate it somehow. Maybe do like a different version of that.
Yes, that's the plan. So we are working on. We have a lot of songs that were of the period that were supposed to be on the album. Then Damna left. He took these songs with him, and the one that we co-wrote together were not included for the same reason, and so on. So there is a lot of good material that we can work on. So this is the plan.
Yeah. And then going into your next album, The Winter Wake, what was that like going from Weird to The Winter Wake?
I don't hear you anymore.
Hang on. Check. 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Check.
No.
All right.
Okay. Yes.
All right. Should I
Yes.
just pick? We could just edit this out. So should I just ask my question again?
Yep.
All right. Take 2. All right. So your next album is The Winter Wake. What was that like going from Weird to The Winter Wake?
It was also that one. It was a kind of an album with a lot of changes, because Damna returns to the band, because, as I said, my relationship with Clay was not going into the right direction. I wanted to have Damna back. The other guys in the band were not so sure. So there was a period of time when I said, "Okay, guys, I'm leaving. I want to do something different, and I will rejoin Damna. And if you don't want him to return to the band, I will do something else." And then I got a phone call from the drummer at the time, Xander, who told me, "Okay, if you are leaving the band, the band will not exist anymore. So let's discuss what to do and so on." So we discussed it. We got Damna back in the band, and for this reason, Jarp and the other guitar player decided to leave, because there was something that couldn't co-live together in all of this. So we rebuilt a little bit the band around this new, returning lineup, let's say, and we try to return a little bit to what was our idea of music, incorporating folk in the song, and also we wanted to probably the Winter Wake is the album with a more constructed songs, let's say, more the form of the song as probably more single like, something like that. And I still like it, the song of the album a lot, even if the production was not good at all. But I think that there are songs of the album that we are still playing live,
Yeah.
and it is kind of a return to the spirit of the origin, let's say.
Yeah, like all these songs are great, like Never Ending Nights, Irrational Anthems, even did that Skyclad cover of Penny Dreadful. I also So like the title track where you had a Schmear from Destruction doing a guest appearance. How'd you end up hooking up with him?
The idea was to have a kind of different vocals in the verse. In the pre-production demo, I was singing that part with a kind of raspy voice, a kind of thrash metal voice. So we said, okay, maybe we can ask someone who can do some kind of thrash metal vocals, and we were fan of Destruction, so we just asked Kashmir if he was interested, and he was very nice in doing it. And he was the first big guest we had in an album. It was an honor to have him
Awesome.
singing one of our songs.
Yeah, and he kills it because I'm a big Destruction fan. He sounds pretty badass.
Yeah, we too. We are too.
Yeah. And then your next album is The Scythe, which pretty much the first time where it's like a quick turnaround, like it was released literally like a year after the Winter Wake. Did you start writing for The Scythe right after the Winter Wake came out?
First of all, I think that the Winter Wake was released probably 1 year later, because it was ready in 2005, and for some reason it was delayed by AFM, because we tour for the first time. We tour Europe with the Winter Wake. We join John Oliva's Pain from Savatage into a European tour, so the album was a little bit delayed for that reason. And from the side on, it's I would say that it starts a period of time in Elvenking where we kind of change direction, and suddenly, often in a sudden way, going from very extreme albums like The Side to very melodic album like Red Silent Tides, for example. Because I think that we were kind of losing the track, especially for the fact that we were, I think, one of the first folk metal bands, or we kind of consider one of the first folk metal bands doing incorporating, folk music in our stuff. And we had a kind of impression that our name was not enough recognized in the scene. There were bands that were coming years after us, like Alouettes, for example, or stuff like that had much more success and were recognized as in this folk metal scene, as important names and so on, while our name was not listed so much. So we kind of felt a little bit, how can I say, we wanted to probably prove to ourselves as songwriter, and then to the people that we were able probably to do quality music also in different aspect of our music. So with The Side, we try to express our most more extreme side, so the more death metal and black metal side of our music. So we kind of move a little bit out of the path where our folk metal soul was, and we kind of change a little bit.
Yeah, and I think The Scythe is like a really extremely underrated album from you guys. Like one of my favorite songs is Lost Hills of Memory. I feel like it's one of the best songs on the album, and I love like Damna's vocal delivery is great, like the guitar riffs, and especially like one of the lyrics, like "Waters of the ocean, tell her that I am near."
Thank you so much.
I just love that. Like the
Thank you
chorus
so
on
much.
that is just catchy.
Yeah. I also like The Scythe very much. I think it's a kind of underrated now album, or at least it was not really understood at the time. There was this kind of not real concept, but there was a kind of theme, theme album around the theme of death. and we wanted all the songs to talk about death seen through different eyes, through different aspect of life. And it was kind of challenging, something that I was pretty, I like a lot the lyrics. They are very poetic and romantic, and also the music was following a little bit this kind of atmospheres, and unfortunately it was not understood at the time. And there were especially probably some arrangements, some electronic arrangements that were you know kind of typical of the early 90 early 2000, like stuff like In Flames or Dark Tranquility were coming out with this electronics and stuff like that, and we tried something like that as well. And obviously this was a huge were highly criticized by our core fans that were expecting something much more folk oriented and fantasy oriented, something like that. And I believe that the album was not understood at the time. Nowadays there are a lot of people that are telling us, at the time I didn't like the album, but nowadays I kind of really, went back to it and listen again, and it is a great album, and I can kind of understand what they are saying.
Yeah, and I know last year was, of course, 15 years of the site. So how do you feel about it now, 15 years later, or now 16?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because I never, when you do an album, you never think that after you can look back at it after 15 years or something like that. But it's kind of crazy. But I like to recall the time when we were writing the songs, recording them, when we wrote the Divided Art, for example. That is probably one of our most famous song. um Damna came with this lead, and it was saying, okay, I had this stuff, but it probably it's a little bit too commercial. And I said, no, man, this is very, very good. Let's build our songs out of it. And we start writing the song, and it was obviously it was very commercial, let's say, but it was a huge success at the time. And the album in the end sold very well, especially in the USA, which is kind of strange for us, but was not bad at all, even if we received a lot of critics from the from the fans, let's say.
Yeah. And then your next album, Two Tragedy Poets and a Caravan of Weird Figures, I think is a pretty interesting album. And I know it's like a mostly acoustic album. So what made you guys decide to do like a mostly acoustic album?
After the site, we had some material that was a little bit more into the folk, more folky, and that was not included in the album because it was not fitting the concept at all. So we had this idea to make some acoustic songs, and we proposed to our to AFM to do an EP with maybe 5 songs, 5 acoustic songs, something like that. And that was the idea. Maybe kind of after a very heavy album like The Side, putting out a small, bunch of songs, more folk oriented and something like that. And that was the idea. And AFM told us, okay, we can do it, but you need to make a full length album, because EP doesn't make sense nowadays at the time. So we were okay, we don't have the songs, what we cannot do, what we can do. And so we started to try to write some more stuff. We included a cover, we included some version of songs like The Winter Wake of The Wanderer in an acoustic version, which
That's
was
amazing.
we were already thinking about doing The Winter Wake acoustic, but then we added also the Wanderer and some in order to fill to fill the album, a full length album that was not in our plan. So we quickly wrote some additional acoustic stuff, and everything came out very spontaneously, let's say, because writing acoustic song is much easier, I would say, at least for us, than electric stuff. So it was very spontaneous and natural, and we had a bunch of songs. And I think that the album is, I don't consider it is as an album, an album of our discography, a full length. It's more like a project, something on aside, something special. And it was very funny to make it, and it has a kind of a interesting atmosphere. It has this, acoustic stuff, very folkloristic, very I like the album. It's very romantic as well, so it's something like more an experiment, I would say, than a real album.
Yeah, and I hard to believe that this year is also 15 years of the album, and I really feel like that it really displays how pretty much Elvenking can be a very creative and kind of like almost experimental band. And
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And also that was an interesting challenge for us, for me and Damna, as songwriters, trying to uh, to confront us with something different, completely acoustic. And what we didn't want to do was a very slow album full of ballads and stuff like that. We wanted to have it kind of rocking, anyhow, something not boring. So there are these acoustic songs which are on the they are not ballads, but they are also kind of groovy and rocking stuff. So it make it a little bit different from other acoustic album that maybe I know. So I kind of feel it's pretty something different, but interesting as well.
yeah. And then the next album, Red Silent Tides, I like that album. Tell me about like the thought process going into that.
Probably in that period was the most chaotic, I would say, period, especially as in the songwriting. We didn't have a clear idea where to go, what to do. It was kind of a sum of what I was saying before, that we were searching kind of our identity. Mm, we had just did a very extreme album like The Sight, and this time we were going to a complete different direction. And if I have to tell you the truth, is it was more it was more pushed by Damna and Xander, so the singer and the drummer, that wanted to move a little bit away from the even more far from the um, folk metal scene, the power metal, and everything that was what we were in the beginning. Uh, so, for example, I came to the rehearsal with one song that was called Room Reader, that was uh, very old style. Was a good songs to be included in either, and for example, uh, but the others wanted to go into a different direction. So to be sincere, I had some songs that I had that I had written years before for a kind of another project, and was something more commercial stuff, and I brought to the table because I felt that the other guys of the band didn't want to go in the direction I wanted to go, with songs like Rune Reader, for example, or the Play of the Leaves, something more closer to our origin. And so in the end, we went with a very hard rock, I would say, something like that, influence album. Also, we chose to produce the album with Dennis Ward, who is a very a big hard rock producer, and also this made the album and everything a little bit in that direction. But also in this case, I believe that the quality of the album is there. I mean, the songs are pretty good. There is a kind of a melancholic atmosphere in the whole album, and it is different, once again, very different from the sides. But once again, and I always said that we are the worst, worst band in terms of choosing choosing where to go. Sometimes we were going into a certain direction. Things were going good, sales were good, fans were growing, and then we were doing something completely different. Then we were gaining some interest in this new, maybe this new direction, and then we changed again, and so on. So probably we were not the best, the best, uh, how to say,
Consistent sounding.
sellers, yeah, or sellers of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you have like a formula that you stick with, people say you're repetitive, but if you experiment, people will say you're kind of inconsistent. But at the end of the day, you gotta like stick to
Yeah.
what you believe in.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then
Exactly. Even if today we kind of regret this period of time, because we thought that we have lost a little bit, no, to a big amount of time, probably going into different direction and so on. But on the other side, we kind of shows a lot of different faces of Elvenking as band and as songwriters.
yeah. And then your next album, Era, I love this album. By unpopular opinion, probably my favorite Elvenking album. And it was actually the album that got me into you guys. I remember hearing the song The Loser, and I was like, what is this? And it made me pretty much be a fan of you guys since. So what was like the thought process going into making Era?
I would say that is my probably one of my least favorite album, least favorite album, if I have to say, from my point of view. But also because it was another period of changes. In that period, we lost the drummer and the bass player. We had two new members, Simon on drums and Jacob on bass. And also in that album, we didn't exactly had a clear vision of where to go. And probably this also can make the album a little interesting, because there are a lot of different stuff going on in the album. There are it is the first step into a return to the origin. In fact, around that album, we put the sentence back to pagan roots, because it was a kind of what we wanted to return a little bit to our origin. And there are some songs on the album, like Chronicle of a Frozen Era, stuff like that are a little bit, old school Elvenking stuff. On the other side, we were bringing in some new influences, and there are songs like The Loser that was, very strong song that we were where we were experimenting, doing something a little bit more extreme, but still in the Elvenking way, especially because we had a new drummer, Simon, that was extremely skilled. So we kind of had that no limits, and we were kind of experimenting and pushing a little bit the boundaries of what we were able to do with a new drummer. That really, Simon, uh, you know, uh, kind of opened the boundaries to doing something that we were not able to do before. So we kind of we were pushing the limits into a technical side, more extreme side, something more difficult for the bass and drum section. So that made the album a step forward in this case. And then there are songs in the album that are still very, a little bit strange, like We Animals or stuff like that, that are still something in between, in the middle of doing. There was kind of a complete freedom, which was not positive or not negative, but not positive at all, because there were no direction. Everyone were writing everything, and we were putting on the album, which was a little bit of complete freedom, which made the album interesting on one side, but on the other side probably uh, it kind of doesn't have a probably a clear direction. uh, but as you said, you love the album, which is great to know.
Yeah, yeah, I remember hearing The Loser, especially like that bridge with like the dual guitars and then the violin playing along with it. Just, that's just really catchy. It's just like an earworm kind of song.
Yeah, The Loser was also one of the the first big videos that we did, and was cool. Yeah, and we played the song a lot live, and was great. It's probably the best song of the album, I would say.
All right. Yeah, and then your next album, The Pagan Manifesto. So what was that like going from Era to The Pagan Manifesto?
That was the real breaking point, where me and Damna sat down, and face to face, and we said, okay, we need to understand where to go with this band, where we want to go, what we want to do, what is the next step we want to do. And exactly with the Pagan Manifesto, we decided that it was time to stop, roaming around our influences, having complete freedom in songwriting and stuff like that. But we wanted to return to the origin, to what was Elvenking in 1997 or in 2001 when we did Eden Real, with the same lyrical, musical, and also visual concept. So we went back to Hidden Reel. Basically, when we did the Pagan Manifesto, we sat down, we started listening to all our old stuff, and we also searched for very old music cassette where we were recordings idea back in 1998 or 2000. And some of the ideas that we have put on Pagan Manifesto are ideas that comes from 1999 or 1998 also. uh, there were some unfinished stuff, or some just hint, just pieces, riffs that we included in the album, because we wanted to return exactly to the origin of the bands, to the core of the bands. Also, we started to, we restarted to dress in a certain way, to have the image of the band, that was what we tried to do in Eden Real back in the days, but obviously with much lower budgets and stuff like that. So we consider the Pagan Manifesto as a restart of the band, like it restarts everything from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Like, especially, I feel like it's almost kind of like a sequel to Era in a way. It's almost similar. Has like that melodic sing along choruses. I feel like it's almost like you guys' bread and butter, and every song just is very catchy. Really, the fast pumping, kind of like almost like the vocal hooks. Especially with some of my favorite songs like Pagan Revelation. It has that, shows like the band, like you guys definitely don't leave your folk metal roots behind. It's just, there's like plenty of like folk metal songs that are very upbeat with like the violin melodies. It's just really catchy. Is pretty much the main focus on the Pagan Manifesto.
Exactly, that's what we wanted to do, to go back, to return to have the violin and the folk influences, folk melodies in front. We started to play, again, fast songs with a lot of double bass, as we did in the early days. And then there are songs, there are still some very melodic songs closer to era, like for example Black Roses for the Wicked One, stuff like that. And there is a very huge song which is King of the Elves, which is a 12 minutes long song that is put in front of the album, which was kind of not very common idea. And also, AFM was not, oh yeah, are you sure you want to start the album with 12 minutes songs? And we said yes, we want to this album to be the manifesto of what Elvenking is. So let's start with something huge and put clear, put on the table clear who we are now and what we want to be from now on.
Yeah. And then going into Secrets of the Magic Grimoire, tell me about like that.
Yeah, it was a kind of after the Pagan Manifesto was kind of difficult to understand what to do next. As said, we said, okay, we want to stay with this musical style, visual style, lyrical style, but at the same time we didn't want to copy the album before. We wanted to do something a little bit that has his own personality. So what we did with the Secrets of the Magic Grimoire was to kind of break the rules, as we did in Hidden Reel. Especially in Hidden Reel, we didn't have any rules. The rules that we set sometimes is, okay, let's put this song as a single. Don't do the songs longer than 4 minutes and a half. Don't do let's try not to do tempo changes into the songs, rules like that. And we said, okay, let's break the rules. Let's have freedom in doing what we want. If we want to put 3 tempo changes into a song, so let's do it again, as we did back in the days. Or if a song it is 6 minutes long, let's make it flow and don't start it, cut it, as we used to do. So it's a little bit more free album. It's a little bit more crazy, let's say. And it has a lot of some black metal influences that probably are not so clear for the people who are not really into some kind of black metal. But if you listen carefully, you can see how in the melodic environment of Elvenking there are some black metal influences here and there. There are some blast beats, some chords that are typical black metal and stuff like that. So it's a more obscure album, and it's a little bit more free, let's say, a little bit without limitations.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like this album also is pretty much on par with the Pagan Manifesto. So, and I feel like it's just great from one song to another. From like invoking the woodland spirit, it's just very power metal, and the same thing with like the Voynich manuscript. It's but also like some of the mid-pace songs such as Dragon's Maelstrom and the Horn Ghost and the Sorcerer. It's just really just one of the faster songs on there. And when you like also seek into like the soft balladry, I feel like you guys just really do it really well.
Yeah, I think that there is a little bit of everything there. Also, some all good power metal stuff, like invoking the woodland spirits that we were not doing since a lot of time, because another thing that me and Damna was, okay, no, this song is a little bit too power metal. Let's not. Okay, we kind of cut this shit and was like, okay, is it good or is it not good? We don't care if it's power metal. It's something. Is it a good song or not? Yes, it's good, so let's go for it. And that's what happened in the album.
Yeah. And then your last album, Reader of the Runes, Divination. Shen, I like that. That I know you did that, and there was also a part two that you did this year. Here, so tell me about like making like part one.
Yeah, at this point, as I said, we needed something to get inspired again, and we needed something good to start and something important. And we had the idea to work on a concept album since a lot of years because we are big King Diamond fans, for example, or we love that great concept albums and stuff like that. But we always wanted to make a concept album, but we needed to have a good story. And until we didn't have the good idea, the sparks that said, okay, we had something to build an album around it. Okay, we never had this chance. So when we started to think about this idea, the idea of the story, and we said, okay, this is the good one to make a concept album. We started to think about the story, and it was clearly immediately clear from the beginning that it was not possible to include the whole story into one single album.
So split it
So
in two.
we yeah, so we put down the story, and we said that okay, we cannot do it in one album, so we need at least three albums. So there will be three albums of this as a story divided into three chapters. So we started working on this, and we work on Reader of the Runes story, which is finally, as we were saying before, there is a song in Red Silent Eyes that was called Rune Reader, and from that figure, the figure of the Reader of the Runes that is introduced in that song, we build up this story, and we started with the first chapter, divination. um, Okay, and writing for a concept album is a little bit different than writing with complete freedom, because you need to adapt the songs, the atmospheres to the story. So it was challenging, but something interesting to work on. Writing the story, the songs, already knowing what they are about. So you need to kind of build up the crescendo of the song around the lyrics, the story, what is happening. And we did a divination back in 2019, and now the second chapter, Rapture, is out.
Awesome and awesome. And then tell me about the new album, Rapture. So far, it's still one of my favorite albums to come out this year. So and of course, again, I guess you worked with the Scott Atkins. How was that like working with him? Because I know he produced like
Yeah.
Cradle of Filth and Behemoth.
Yeah.
Did he also wanted to bring sort of like the kind of like the darker themes and imagery for the album?
Well, first of all, as I said, we knew the story beforehand. We have this story divided in three chapters, and we knew that the second chapter, it's the chapter where everything's violent happens. It's extremely gruesome, violent, obscure, and dark chapter of the story. So um the songs needed to follow the atmosphere of the story. We had also the luxury, let's say, or not, but the album was originally planned to be released in 2021. That was the plan. Then COVID pandemic came up, and so everything was stuck. We weren't able to work out from home. All the tours that we had were canceled. All the activities were, the everything was stopped. So we started. The only thing that we could do was writing music. So we started writing music, and still the pandemic was on. So me and Damna kept on writing, and so in the end we found ourselves with enough songs for 2 albums, for chapter 2 and chapter 3. So we had the luxury to have a bunch of song and choose which one were fitting better the concept and the atmosphere of the album. So we obviously we put the more dark and more obscure songs in this chapter Rapture, and we decided to work with Scott Atkins. We had his name in the list because we are very, producer freaks since a lot of time, because the work he is doing with Cradle Field is extremely great. And obviously Cradle Field is a kind of different band from us, but at the same time it's kind of similar in terms of layers of music. There are several layers of stuff going on: orchestration, choirs, vocals, a lot of guitars, and a lot of stuff going on. And the mixes done by Scott Atkins were extremely clear, powerful, but it was, everything is recognizable. You can clearly hear a bit of everything. And so we felt that it was the perfect name for us, and we contacted him. We were still in the pandemic period, so in the end it was easier for him to come in Italy than moving 6 of us in the UK. So he came to Italy, he recorded the drums with us, he set down the sounds for guitars and bass, and then obviously he mixed and mastered the album, and he did a marvelous job, especially in underlining the more dark and obscure atmospheres of the album, which is very, as you said, is very dark album.
Awesome. And like you mentioned before, this is part 1 and part 2 are sort of like our concept album. So how did you come up with the concept for Reader of the Ruins? Is this something that you've wanted to do for a while?
Yeah, it was something that we wanted to do for a long time, as I said, and we didn't have the right idea. Then I remember that during I think it was during a travel to South America. Was a long travel, so me and Damna were sitting together for 11 hours of flight, something like that. We were going on tour in Brazil or somewhere like that. So we started. I think okay. I had, you remember the song Room Reader from Red Silent Tides? Okay, this figure can be something interesting to build up a concept album around this. So maybe this Reader of the Runes arrives. These mysterious figures arrives in a village and start doing divinations to the villagers, and predict. He can read the past and the future, but also predict the future, and what is going to happen to this character. And this then can bring something, create something very, very bloody and violent in the near future. So we started to build this story, and was something that was growing good for us, was good, and we said, okay, we can do a concept album. And then we decided to split it into 3 different chapters.
All right. And of course, we had part 2 that came out on in this past April. So when's the next?
Yep.
When's part 3 coming out? Do you have like a specific timeline of when can we expect the next album?
Yep. Yeah, we waited 4 years between the first chapter and the second one, but between the second and the third, the album, the period of time will be much shorter, because we can consider chapter 2 and chapter 3 like a kind of a double album, because we wrote the 2 chapters together and we partially recorded together, because the drums were recorded together for the 2 albums, and also part of the guitars. Now we are keep going with the guitar recordings, and the date is already set. Release date will be August 2024. So next year, the third chapter will be already be released.
Awesome. And sort of like in the end, to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Elvenking? Have you all got any tours lined up, and is there a chance maybe you can bring Elvenking to the States for a tour one day? We'd love to have you, even though I am seeing you in September at Prague Power, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, great. So we can meet there, man. Sure.
Yeah.
We have been, we have been at the 70,000 tons of metal in January. So it was we came to Miami. It was nice experience. Very strange experience in the boat. And now we have just signed a new contract with Rock the Nation Touring, which is a big booking agency in Europe. So we are lining things up for a tour, and then we'll be probably going into late fall. So we are now setting the dates. Now we are doing some summer festival shows for a time, and then in fall we will be on tour. In September we will be at the Prague Power, which will be a great thing to come back at Prague Power and in Atlanta. And to be sincere, we had some first contacts from bookers in the US for some for some touring in the US. It's the first time that we get contacted by promoters there. I don't know if it will lead to something, but I think that
Fingers
we need
crossed.
to tour. Yeah, I get. We need to tour US, I think, because it is a great market, and I see that there, it's going great there. All the bands that are coming there are doing great shows, and friends like Rhapsody of Fire or other bands that we know that have been there are bringing us great memories. So we need to go there. Slash God Apocalypse and so on. So
Yeah. So before we go, Aiden, I want to say thank you for this interview. Is just any final words you want to say to close this out?
uh usually I want just to close the interview saying that in this period of time where music is really much different as I used to live when I was a teenager, back in the 90s, early 90s. I like to listen to an album with headphones on, the booklet, reading the lyrics and going from the first songs to the very last one. I think that this kind of living the music, it's kind of lost with all Spotify and stuff like that. But we write our albums with this idea, starting from the first song, doing kind of a journey for 1 hour of music, whatever, and going with the flow and the waves ups and down. And would be great if there is someone out there still wanting to listen to the albums the old way, starting from the first song to the last one, reading the lyrics and trying to live in a world of fantasy for 1 hour and go out from reality. And I think that is the meaning of listening to music, making music, and living music as I was to do, but hopefully also other
Awesome.
people still like to do this way.
Awesome, man. So everybody, Aiden from Elvenking. We'll see you next time.